everyone, Cleo here, welcome to my channel, and today I will be giving you my December wrap-up, so the wrap-up for 2018 also in part. Though I also have a video with my reading stats for 2018, so definitely have a look there. I will link it down below, as well as perhaps in a separate video the overview of every book that I've read in 2018. However, most likely I was able to squeeze it into one video, but if not, then I'll link those two videos down below. So for the month of December, the plan was to read, I think the plan was to read 4 books. Now I didn't get around to that, but I did almost. But so yeah, the best laid plans, and the month of December was so busy. I mean, I had a cat who had a broken paw, so I had to go to the vet multiple times in the month, mostly in like this one particularly busy week. And then I plan to do Bookmas 2018, so I've shot a video every single day and edited a lot of them almost every single day as well. Like I took a break there of like 2 days or something because I got so ill at some point. And then I was also doing my 24 days of Christmas book tag, which I will also link down below. So the month of December was very busy for me, and with getting sick and all of that, I also had to take it a little bit slower when it came to reading. But in part this was also due to what I was reading. So I had decided to dedicate the month of December to classics, and I think I won't be doing that anymore. I won't be dedicating a specific month anymore to classics as a whole in any case. Maybe to fantasy, but in any case I won't just restrict myself to a certain genre, because yeah, if I'm not feeling like having that genre, then I won't be very interested in it. And I felt too much like I had to continue reading classics just because I said I was gonna, and that was just not a wise decision on my part. So I think I'll just stop with the idea of like doing a certain theme a month. I only tried it in December in any case, but I think reading diversely is my way of making sure that I don't end up in like sort of reading slump, and so I will just continue balancing my reading palettes. But so for the month of December I had to start by finishing A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I started this in November, and then I had a couple of busy weeks because I had to pick up cats and stuff like that. But so A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, I was like 600 pages into this starting the month, so I just had to finish like the last 100 and a little bit. I really like this book, and it is one of the few books in 2018 that reached my 5-star rating. Actually 2 of the 5-star ratings for the year of 2018 were finished in the month of December, so in that sense the month of December was a very good reading month. But so yeah, technically this was mostly read in November. But so we follow 4 friends who meet in college, maybe even high school already, and we mostly follow this one character called Jude and his tragic backstory. So it's hinted at throughout the book, and it slowly unravels. So basically that's what we're discovering throughout the story, and it is then the combination of finding out about his tragic background story and having a look at his opinions about himself, but also his relationships with others and the way he interacts with others, knowing what has happened in his past. That makes it extra tragic. I know a lot of people describe, so either it seems like a you love it or you hate it type of books. The people who love it because it makes you feel a lot of emotions, and they've had to cry while reading this book, which was also the case for me. The people who hate it consider it like torture porn, so they say the character undergoes so much bad stuff, and it seems to be like it's just a culmination of bad things happening to that person just so that the reader can feel certain feelings. Now, in a sense, I'm agreeing with that. I definitely didn't feel like it while I was reading, but at certain points I did feel like, oh no, once again something bad is happening to this person. When you're starting to feel like you're going into the good part of his history, another bad thing happens. And I'm not necessarily saying that I feel like that is unrealistic. I do feel like when bad things start happening to people, that there's a possibility for more bad things to happen to that person, for them to get into a certain spiral just because of also the mental state that person is getting into. And in the case of the main character, he's also getting into certain environments that are more susceptible to bad things happening to people. So I don't necessarily consider it being super unrealistic. I also don't feel like the bad things that happen to the person are the most emotional parts. The most emotional parts for me in any case were the present day so the most emotional parts for me were more like the present day stuff, seeing how he treats himself, how he doesn't believe doesn't believe he deserves the love of the people around him and things like that. Those were the types of scenes that would make me cry. I do say I gave it a 5-star rating just because I felt it deserved to be above the 4-star rating that a lot of the books I read this year got, but I do feel like it dragged in certain parts. So I think like the first part of the book is super good, but then there's like a 100-page stretch somewhere in relatively close to the beginning in which I personally felt like I had to struggle through. It's also, I think, the first time that you're reading from the perspective of this Jude with his tortured past, and then somewhere near the end, like basically from page 600 onwards, I also felt like it dragged a lot and like I wasn't as invested anymore. But this can also have to do with like a development that's happened around that part of the book. But I still gave it this 5-star rating because overall I still feel like it is one of the better books I read this year. And sure, it dragged in parts, but I'm not necessarily taking that away from it. So maybe I should also up the rating on one of the first books I read this year, which is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, because I gave that a 4-star rating, whereas I would say it is like a 4.8 or something like that. So maybe I will also boost that one up to 5. But so A Little Lie by Hanya Yanagihara, I definitely recommend it. And if you know that you're the type of person who gets very annoyed by people constantly being put in bad situations and things like that, there is definitely a chance of you not liking this because of that. So I don't feel like it's necessarily the main focus. For me, the main focus was in the present day part of the story, but it is definitely in there, and it takes up a lot of the story lengthwise as well. So be aware that there's that possibility, and definitely, as I kind of hinted at, trigger warnings for a lot of things in this book. So basically everything bad that can happen to a person. The second book that I then finished is the one that took me the longest, and which is also the shortest. So this is probably what set my December reading plans back. So it is The Trial by Kafka. It is 170 pages or something like that, and it took me 2.5 weeks or something to finish this. So we are following our protagonist Joseph K, who wakes up one morning and in like the room next to his there are a couple of people waiting for him, and they tell him that he is under arrest. Now his arrest literally has no impact in his life in a sense, because he gets to continue working, he gets to stay where he is. All he has to do is like appear in front of a sort of like a commission who has to decide on his case, and then when he's there he kind of fends everybody so that his trial continues going and things like that. But mainly it's not like he gets thrown into prison or something like that, but the main focus of the story is, to me at least, was the way in which the fact that he's committed of a crime impacts his life and the way people look at him, even though you're never informed and he is never informed of the crime. So that's the thing that I liked about the story, the concept behind it, of it being strictly about the effects of being convicted of something, or being even just accused of something, because he still has to do the trial, you know. He's been arrested, he's accused of a certain crime, we don't know which one, but the effects that has on the person, and also undergoing that trial, having to defend himself, having to kind of vouch for his character, that was the part that interested me most. However, I felt it was very long-winded, not a lot happens, and the main character was very unlikable as well, which is of course, I mean, you don't have to like a character to be able to enjoy the book, but because I already felt like it was very drawn out and things like that, I didn't necessarily enjoy it all that much. What I did also enjoy is that it has a frame story, so it is a story within a story, which I always like. However, I almost like to frame the story within the story more than I like the actual frame story. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I do recommend maybe going, I mean, I don't know. This is my one and only Kafka, but he's also written Metamorphosis, and I think maybe this one is a better one to start with if you're more into realism. I might still try and give Metamorphosis a go. But I don't know, maybe I'll just give it a try it, and if after 10 pages I don't like it, just say okay, no. I do have to also on a side note say that the translator for this version indicated that he made a lot of changes to the languages to make it more readable, so it's possible that if you read this in a different edition that it might also be very confusing language-wise. I found the language to be very clear and enjoyable actually in this version, but so I have heard that, for example, in the original language it is quite difficult to get through. And then the final book that I finished in the month of December is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, and so this is the second 5-star rated book that I gave, that I read in December. And so Elantris is about a society. It's basically about two neighboring cities. So you have the city of Kai and you have the city of Elantris. And the city of Elantris used to be very rich, very wealthy, and the people in there were revered as if they were gods. They seemed to be immortal, they could do magic and all of these things. They could heal people. And then one day this all disappeared. There was a huge chasm that erupted. The people of the city lost all of their powers, and the inhabitants basically became like a sort of zombie-esque. I mean, they cannot die, they don't need to feed, they, if they get wounded, they continue living without a problem. But so the city is basically sort of quarantine zone, and the people of Kai have this fear of becoming an Elantrian, because what can happen is you can wake up one morning and suddenly your skin is all splotched with black, and that means that you become an Elantrian and that you will be cast out into the city of Elantris. And so at the beginning of the story we follow multiple characters, but one of them is the Crown Prince Raerden, who has been thrown into the city of Elantris because he has become an Elantrian. And then his betrothed Serene was on her way to the capital to meet him for the very first time, and so she becomes a widow, because even though they hadn't technically married, the contract states that if either of them dies before the marriage takes place, that the marriage vow is still intact. So she becomes a widow and actually crown princess in one, and on her side we follow more of a political intrigue as she tries to settle into her new domain and establish power, and basically goes into a battle of wills with this priest character called Rathan, who is trying to convert the entire city to his religion. I really liked it. It's a Brandon Sanderson. I always like his fantasies. It's original in its magic system. It is a very good description of the magic system. It is a very epic scale as always, and he has very good characters and very good character dynamics, very much like the character of Serene, who is a very independent woman, willing to take charge of matters, and yeah, I really liked it. I would definitely recommend it, and the good thing is that there is a sequel coming out in 2020, because up until now it had been a standalone, but in 2020 we are treated to a sequel, and I see that there's also mentions, or at least rumors, of a third one. And then the final book that I read in 2018, but I didn't finish, is a book that I didn't finish, sadly, because it was one of the books on my 2018 TBR pile. It's a book that I really wanted to get to, but it'll be one of the first books I read in 2019, because I'm already 2/3 of the way in it. And that is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Now, I am, as you can see, pretty far in it at the moment. I did struggle with it, and I'm still kind of struggling with it, I will say. I very much like Charles Dickens. I like this Oliver Twist a lot, and I like Great Expectations a lot. And definitely also enjoyed David Copperfield, but A Tale of Two Cities so far, to me it seems just like there's not really a basic problem to be resolved or anything like that in the book so far. So the story is about a ex-prisoner, Dr. Manette, who is reunited with his daughter and who returns to England with her after being imprisoned in France. And basically that's the story so far, and 2/3 of the way in, and there are these side characters who sometimes like hint at the fact that they know this prisoner, that they know of Dr. Manette, and that there's probably some dark secret that's gonna be revealed. But to me it seems like there's not really a story at the moment, or nothing like really happening, and that's a big problem with it, because I like the language. You can see I tabbed a couple of stuff in the beginning, and then I started listening to the audiobook, so I stopped tabbing. But like I probably somewhere until here I read physically in there. I have quite a couple of tabs in there, but then when I listened to the audiobook they stopped. But so I started listening to the audiobook to kind of get it more into it, and I did proceed a lot, but I also felt like I couldn't focus on it too much. So now I'm just gonna go for the rest of the book. I'm just gonna go with listening to the audiobook while having the physical copy in my hands in order to focus myself on it. I'm not DNFing because I want to get through all of Charles Dickens' books, and I've already gotten to 2/3 of this at the moment. So I'm just gonna continue with it and see what it will bring me. I have read like summaries for the parts that I listened to on an audiobook, and I did get the main gist of it, but I'm not DNFing it. I'm not really a DNFer, so that's something I need to improve on, because I often force myself through an entire book, and then what's the point of it? It's just because I don't want to give up on it, because it might improve, and that's definitely the case for a lot of the books that I've read. A lot of the books that I read do get better towards the ending, but I'm also a sucker for endings, so that's normal. But I'm not going to do it for this one just because I'm already 2/3 of the way in, but for 2019 I definitely want to improve on that. But so yeah, you should be seeing this in my January wrap up, otherwise definitely scold me for it. But so yeah, see you guys!